Hello there, everybody.
Hi.
Well, we're in for a treat here because one of my very favorite things to do is to do something I've never done before. And so this is an opportunity for me to do something I've never done before. And one of my very favorite things to do is to have conversations with Marty. And so this will be our first one live and in person here on television for all the world to see.
It's great. We were just talking about what Gay just said about how special this moment is for us. And what we'd like to do is invite you into the conversation we've already been having, Gay and I and our women, Dorothy and Katie, who are here also, and just invite you into that in being here with us. So, welcome.
Yeah, a whole new adventure, an adventure in being here. And we'd like Katie and Dorothy to come over and say hi, just so you can see what's going on in the background.
She's going to take some maneuvering.
Yeah,
we haven't done this before either.
Yeah.
the
Okay,
magnificent
there we are.
Dorothy and the magnificent Katie.
Hi, folks.
Katie and I often do these together.
This is kind of fun to see somebody else doing them.
Actually, I think this is the very first time I've ever done one of these with anybody except Katie.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I
You
don't
know, it's wonderful. You're no longer a virgin. I've de-virginized you.
Yeah, so if you haven't already figured this out, I'm Gay Hendricks.
And I'm Martin Weiner.
And Marty and I, we truly go way back. I've known Marty off and on for probably, 30 years?
I think at least since the 80s.
Yeah.
Early 80s, end of the 70s.
Yeah, and Katie's probably known him even longer. So,
Yes.
And the interesting thing is that we keep showing up in the same places. Like, for example, when I met Marty, we were both around Palo Alto, California. Then I didn't see him for another, 20 years probably. Mm-hmm. And then I moved to Santa Barbara with Katie in 1995, and we found, to our great amazement, that Marty was living up the road from us. But that gets even better because we moved to Ojai 10 years ago, totally unbeknownst to me. Marty had moved to Ojai. So we have some sort of interlocking karmic path.
So Gay has said to me that he hopes I'm done moving.
Yeah, because I love where I live here.
Great.
So let's see, should we say anything else about introductions, or are we introduced here?
So I want to appreciate both of you, and I want to say also how special I think it is that you're having this conversation with each other. And one thing I really appreciate about you, Marty, is your openness to learning and how you're always curious about what's happening now, what's wanting to happen, and it's something that I recognize and really love in you. You're always surfing out there on the edge of what's really possible for human beings, and that's what all you do. That seems to me that that's all you do. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really I'm just appreciating so much that you like to talk to each other. And so I wanted to introduce you to how skilled both Gay and Marty are at bringing forward just the most exciting possibilities of what we can all do together.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, darling.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. That was, One of the other things I'd like to add by way of attuning us more to being here. I forgot. I forgot because I gave it an introduction. Someday I'm going to learn to just let it out without feeling I have to justify it with an introduction that makes it noteworthy. But it will come back. It will come back to me.
Perhaps let me give it an introduction.
Yeah,
Here is the greatest concept.
Oh, I know it. Yeah. Great. I got it. That was useful. I wanted to congratulate everybody who's here, because you made it here. I mean, this is not, I'm not saying something trivial here. That, can you turn this on? Okay. Really take a second to appreciate this about yourself. That wherever you are, whatever your circumstances look like right now, whatever situation you're in, whatever country you're in, or whatever state, you're here. In the sense of here that we're trying to reveal and look at and explore together and experience. But you made it here. After a lifetime of, I'm sure, all kinds of stuff, many of the times of which you thought, you were totally lost. But if you take a second to appreciate that however lost you ever felt, you made it here tonight. You ought to really respect yourself for the wisdom that took. Because there's a lot of people who aren't here. Not them saying everybody should be here. Hopefully wherever they are, they're here. But here we're doing it consciously, and that is unusual. And so you made it. Thank you for coming.
A group of people exploring being here. What a wonderful thing. I love the idea of us all initiating a conversation about being here and what it takes to be here. There was a popular book a couple of years ago by Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. And we thought it would be interesting to call this The Power of Here, because as useful a book as that was, it has a built-in problem to it, actually, and that is the moment you come into anything that's different from now, you enter the world of time. And so many people set up a duality of now and then, or now or the future. But that all takes place within the context of time. And we want to explore something completely different that I think will be equally useful to you, and that is to explore the power of here, which is about how you occupy space and how much space occupies you. That one of the things that I'd like to have happen in our conversations is that we can all admit more space into our bodies and admit more body into space. To me, most of the trouble in the world is caused by things people are trying to withdraw from feeling in themselves. They're trying to get away from a here that to someplace else. Or in their religion, they may be trying to get away from a here and putting their money on some kind of a future experience like going to heaven or reincarnating well. But in my experience, the real core issues of life are issues of space, not of time, and they're issues of things that we need to feel our way into, and in the feeling of them, we birth a new type of soul or spirit or whatever you want to call it, a new entity that's different from the type of presence that now can bring you. It's a much different experience of space.
For me, this may be more than personal, but it certainly is true for me, that there's a primacy for me about my body as a starting place. And space and the sense of here as opposed to the temporal dimension and the now, I just feel much more connected and identified with my spatiality. Now, I know that the body, at least the way that we have learned from our culture how to have a body, because I think it's a learned thing, it's always been of interest to me what's really here when I get past the way I've learned to be here in my body. For example, if I stop and just start to feel myself, I start to feel there are subtle movements happening inside a lot. And they're much more descriptive in energetic terms than they are in physical bones, muscles, and those kinds of things terms. So for me, here is really where the action is, and lining up to here and feeling how we're connected through space in a larger organism, a larger consciousness. And time for me somehow just For me, it seems, I don't know, just commonsensically for me, it seems like you need time to experience space.
Mm-hmm.
And that if you don't have space and you're experiencing just time in the now, it's a much more psychological dimension.
Yeah, the way it kind of feels to me is that time and space are at two ends of something. And if I'm really in time, I don't feel any space. In other words, if I'm rushing to get somewhere or I think I'm late to be somewhere, I'm kind of lost in that time dimension. I don't feel like I'm occupying space very well, and I don't feel like I'm letting space in. And to go to the opposite extreme of just feeling space without also honoring time, that could be problematic too, because you'd never obey things like traffic lights, and you wouldn't get to appointments on time and things like that. So I think the ultimate thing where we're going maybe is to experience the essence of time and the essence of space all at the same time, to spread out in all dimensions at once.
Right. Can you describe more kind of frame by frame? Because what Gay just described, I think, is tremendously important. If you can reach that level of experience of yourself, then you're in touch with what's happening, and you're no longer just being victimized by this apparent body, creating bad sensations. So you did something, you noticed something first.
Yeah, well, one thing I've learned, certainly from you over 30 years and from my own explorations, is that my body is this incredible feedback mechanism. It's a kind of like a three-dimensional
consciousness
thermostat that's happening all the time that can tell me at any moment how things are going. And one thing I started doing was, as I was sitting here, I realized that I had this slight thing that was going to become a pain kind of creeping up my middle back. And I realized I'd been sort of slouching a little bit, and I think that's what was causing it. So I began to, as I began to feel the front edge of that thing that was going to turn into pain, instead of getting to the point where it actually turned into pain, I played with my spine and moved around and organized myself a little bit so I wasn't slouching anymore. And then I got this nice flow going again. And so I guess I hadn't really thought about it in the terms of my back, but I keep a kind of a eye out for that flow all the time, and if it stops happening, I try to fix why it stopped.
But the way I feel you experiencing it, and the language you're using to describe that experience, I'd like to look at for 1 minute.
Sure.
Because in the actual experience, it feels like you're really feeling your body as if it was this conscious, aware, intelligent clay that's aware of itself, and it's constantly what you call having an eye out. It's its own eye feeling itself. And when it starts to notice, oh, wait a minute, I'm doing this, it starts to self-correct. But the language that we've been given to describe our body and how we relate to it starts to get schizophrenic right away, where there's an us over here doing that has to pay attention, be vigilant, and pay attention, and now move the body in different ways to help it feel better. I think that's an old way of thinking, and what the possibility is when you're here, and this is something I really like to get into in the book, and maybe in this context when we do it again in the future, is how to be present in this physicality. I don't want to call it a body, because that has kind of like our body is really an artifact of culture. We think we really are experiencing our body, but we're trained how to have a body, as I said earlier. And I think what we're talking about is an opportunity to begin to experience ourselves as an energetic that's conscious, so that as issues come up, we consciously resolve them. And I think a lot of the research that's being done in energetic medicine today is moving in that direction, away from allopathic medicine, where you need some kind of means, technique, whatever, in order to produce change. What you're talking about is really being so present here. Whatever here is, that it starts to do its dance with itself, and there's a lot of life and vitality in that.